Immune systems. We're born with them, but what exactly are they? The immune system is a complex network of cells and proteins that defends the body against infection. It keeps a record of every germ it's ever defeated so it can recognize and destroy the microbe quickly if it ever enters the body again. You might be wondering what you can do to strengthen your immune system with all the COVID talk right now. There are things you can do, and we'll discuss them in today's show. Dr. Kell will be interviewing Ted Hahn, who is a clinical nutritionist who began bodybuilding and powerlifting competitively during his teen years. He was amazed at how quickly the body responded to good food and good exercise. As he matured, he got into nutrition and has been working in the field for the past 30 years. He worked in pharmaceuticals for 10 to 12 years, but found his passion and love in clinical nutrition and helping doctors and their practices understand how to implement nutrition to help improve the health of their patients on a long-term basis. As a clinical nutritionist, his favorite simple rule is, if it didn't have fins, feathers, fur, or grow out of the earth, don't eat it. Welcome to episode 17. I'm Nikki Sterner, and I'm here with Dr. Kell today. You are going to be interviewing Ted Hahn. Tell me a little bit about Ted. How do you know him?
Ted Hahn is a clinical nutritionist. Okay. I know him because of one of the supplement companies that I use. We became friends. He teaches seminars and on given health topics for that company, Standard Process. And so that's how we met, got to know each other. So Ted is an extremely knowledgeable guy. His knowledge, his depth of knowledge in the area of function of the body and how it reacts to nutrients is way beyond mine. So he's a resource for me when someone comes in to see me with some kind of health problem. At times, I have a variety of different ways I can go, and sometimes I actually consult with him when they have unusual symptoms or symptoms I haven't seen before. He seems to always have the answer.
That's interesting. So clinical nutrition is based on food? Nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, he's licensed as a nutritional clinical nutritionist, but his knowledge goes way beyond that. I mean, you go to school to become a nutritionist, you learn all the basics, and there's dietitians that call themselves nutritionists too, and they learn about diets and foods and what the FDA and USDA and all the other government agencies out there, they learn what the standards are and what people should generally be eating that are considered healthy. The nutritionist side of it tends to go more into the holistic side, whereas the dietitian, I'm not knocking dietitians if any dietitians are listening. You get out of school they're like anybody else. They get out of school and go, okay, now I'm going to really go learn what I was supposed to. Because until they start applying it, and seeing the problems and working with the people, you really don't learn it. For most people.
Sure. Lots of people react differently to different foods too, so I'm sure you have to case by case.
Yes,
you're dealing with that.
Case by case.
Yeah. So I wanted to get into the quote of the day now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
You got me rambling too quickly there, and we missed out. The quote of the day is supposed to come right off the bat, right? So
right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the quote of the day is, "To see what is right and not do it is a lack of courage," by Confucius. Did I say that right? Confucius. He would be, Confucius.
He was a very forgiving guy, so I'm sure he's fine with it either way.
Right?
Yes, and depending on what language you're saying his name in, that may have been the exact pronunciation.
Exactly. So I probably got it right.
Yes,
so I'm glad we can agree on that.
I think you did. And
so to know that you have to eat this healthy food and all the clinical nutrition advice coming up, we have to do that, or else we're lacking courage, right?
That's right. That's right. Time to change.
We're
about helping you make the change to a healthier lifestyle and wellness, and which will help you feel happier.
And that does take courage.
It does take courage to do the things we're recommending. Though again, you have your choices, and so don't blame us on us if you don't do it or don't follow us. But we're here to try to help you, and we're having fun doing it. So,
do you have any news of the day?
Yeah, we have news of the day.
Okay.
Nikki, I wanted to bring up an article that I found. It was actually in the Seattle Times, of all places. April 26, 2021, says the world is too dry and hungry to snub genetically modified crops. Tech CEO says. So what I wanted to do is just share some things in here. It's very interesting in this article. There's a company out of Argentina that has been genetically altering wheat. And wheat is one of those foods that has not really taken off. Monsanto, with all the things going on in the world with up in arms about the GMO foods or crops, vegetables specifically. They have cut back from what I'm hearing. Monsanto has actually stopped producing some of the stuff that they were producing and tried to move towards being more towards the organic way of doing things.
Great.
Or at least trying to make changes and improvements. So good for Monsanto. This guy, though, I don't know. Maybe you want to buy stock in his company. They're raising money now. They're trying to get things approved in different countries. They're in Brazil where they did all their testing. Not Brazil, I'm sorry, Argentina where they did all their testing. Now they're trying to get countries to accept their seeds and start growing this modified wheat. The CEO is claiming that within 5 years we won't be able to produce enough vegetables, fruits and vegetables to supply the world with the food it needs, as well as meats. That he's claiming within 5 years we're going to have a famine. Basically, is what it sounds like. Didn't use those specific words though. But and that if we don't have these genetically altered foods that grow in, he has a point. The world is changing. Areas in the world, certain areas are becoming more arid, and certain areas are not growing the crops as well as they used to because they don't have enough water and getting too much sun. And so anyway, they come up with this wheat that they can grow in very arid regions, and now they're claiming that it will be good for the environment because it will help reduce carbon dioxide in the air, which is a big discussion today. Although if I got to look up that name. The guy's on the documentary that talks about dolphin safe tuna. So Ted's going to talk about a little bit about the dolphin safe tuna issues going on now on that documentary called Seaspiracy on Netflix. Go watch it if you haven't watched it. It's quite enlightening. But anyway, the ocean, we've learned, is the greatest reducer of carbon dioxide in the world and way beyond what anything we could do on the land masses with our crops. Not to say what we're doing, planting trees and all that isn't good. It is good for the environment. Keep doing it. But the ocean is where the most significant problem is occurring today. Anyway, we're talking about wheat. So there you go. Genetically modified wheat on the horizon. Keep a watch out for it. I'm not going to eat it. So
Me either.
Here we go.
All right, well, let's get into the interview.
Today we are talking about immunity, a big subject today with COVID-19, and even before COVID-19 it was a big subject, but even more so today, and everyone's concerned about how they can improve their immunity. So we've brought in an expert, Ted Hahn, who's a clinical nutritionist. And he's had experience with pharmaceuticals as well as nutrition, well, supplementation and good eating. So we're going to talk to him and ask him questions about immunity. He's going to explain to us how we can improve it, what it's all about. And Ted, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, let's just get started. Let's get right into
Sure.
it. Tell us a little bit about you, Ted, first.
So I developed a fascination with health and nutrition when I was in my early teens, and I started bodybuilding and powerlifting, and I got into that competitively for a number of years, and I was really amazed at how quickly the body responds to good food and good exercise in a whole spectrum of different ways. So as I matured and got out of that, I got more into nutrition, and I've been in the nutritional industry for about close to 30 years now. I did a brief stint on the dark side of pharmaceuticals for about 10 or 12 years. I learned a lot, but and it was a lot of fun, but this is really my passion and my love is clinical nutrition and helping doctors in their practices understand how to implement nutrition to improve the health of their patients on a long-term basis.
Awesome. Well, that's why we're here. That's why we exist as Health Talk with Dr. Kell. We want to share with the public alternatives to modern medicine and help people recognize that there are alternatives and what they can do to find them and use them and how they can benefit them. So let's get right into it.
Sure.
Tell me, Ted, what's immunity in the body? What is it?
Immunity is, we hear about the immune system. It's not something that's centrally located in the body like an organ system. It's a cellular network that exists throughout the body, in the tissues of the intestinal system, in the bloodstream, all over the body. And there are classifications of different cells that come from the bone marrow. All your immune cells initially come from the bone marrow. You have...
And that's the substance inside the bone, right? A lot of people don't understand
Yes.
even what a bone marrow is.
Yes, exactly. So one of the functions of bone marrow is to create antibodies. And it creates other types of immune cells too. The immune cells that are not classified as antibodies migrate through the body to an organ at the base of the neck called the thymus. And the thymus is kind of like, you might compare it to a Top Gun school for immune cells. They go there to get given their various tasks and identities and their role in the immune system functionality. So that's what the thymus does. It works in conjunction with the bone marrow, and these two organ systems, along with the lymph system, dictate how the body responds to challenges from viruses, bacteria, things of that nature.
Briefly explain what the lymph system is. That's part of our immune system, right?
It's, yeah, in a way. We have a vascular system. We have veins and arteries and capillaries all over our body. The lymph system kind of mirrors that system and sits right next to it. And you might compare it to the garbage disposal system in our bodies. In other words, when cells die or there's biological pollution inside our bodies, it results from dead cells or the turnover of aging tissue, that type of thing. It goes into the lymph system. The lymph system carries it essentially out the body so that it's eventually eliminated in the stool. So that's kind of underscores why it's so important to be regular, because not only are we getting rid of things we can't use from our diet, but we're also getting rid of things that the lymph system has collected and designated as byproducts of viruses, impurities, and that types of thing, and that's how we get it out of our body.
So it's kind of the end of the immune response. It takes out the waste that when the cells have died off, the body's broken those down and gotten rid of them, and it takes it out. And you've got, a lot of people know about lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are like under your arms, and people with sometimes get cancer, things like that. They talk about lymph and lymph nodes.
Yeah, and the lymph system is also important because it's also a transport system for a lot of these immune cells. In other words, they are stationed at various sections of the lymph system, and they survey the body for invaders of a bacterial or viral nature, and then they help the body, those cells help the body to formulate an attack plan so that they can effectively get rid of the viruses or the infected cells.
And that's why the lymph nodes swell up, right, when you get an infection?
Yeah, that can be one of the reasons. Another reason is they get blocked on occasion, and they don't have a heart pumping fluid through them like the blood system does. So gravity and physical motion is what makes the lymph system work. So that's why it's important that we exercise. One of the many reasons why that's important. It keeps the lymph system working, and if that's working good, then we're getting rid of our toxicity at the same time.
I don't know that we've given our audience a total description as how it works, but obviously it fights infection, right?
Yeah, I can kind of summarize it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bullet points here. You essentially have two types of cells. You have T cells. They're called T cells because they come from the thymus, and you have B cells that come from the bone marrow. T cells are what's referred to as cell-mediated immunity. It signals various types of immune cells to go kill the invader, whatever that happens to be. B cells are referred to in medical jargon as humoral immunity, and that means that they create antibodies that are designated to go destroy things that are determined to be harmful to us.
So the antibody's like the warrior. It goes out and finds it and beats it up and kills it?
Yeah, actually, most of your immune cells function in that capacity to one extent or another. We have an innate immune system, which works on a very simple level, and all animals have innate immune systems as well, and that simply says, find what's in the body that is not classified as us and go kill it. The adaptive immune system is a bit more specific. That will create a specific battle plan with various different types of immune cells that are very specific in their function to take out viruses, bacteria, that type of thing. And so we have a combination of these two types of immune systems that work in conjunction with one another, in cooperation with one another, so that we can maintain our health and get quick well if we happen to get sick.
part of that whole thing just amazes me too. You know, a lot of people don't know that we're only aware of roughly 3 to 5% of what's going on in our system, and all this is going on inside of us. We're totally clueless to it. It's just amazing to me. So tell me what, you know, it's a big deal right now too in the news. There's articles coming out now of different substances used in plastics and other products that, in fact, I read an article not long ago about how one chemical is common in plastics that inhibits the immune system. And so talk about that a little bit too. Everybody's scared with COVID and wearing their masks and running around and gotta go get the vaccine. And though we're not saying we're anti-vaccine here, we think people should be educated and really study and learn before they go take those shots. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when you think about the human immune system, it's incredibly effective. It's incredibly efficient. It's incredibly intelligent. And what we've been led to believe as of late is that the immune system is somewhat confused, dysfunctional, weak, and not really good at doing its job.
That's the message being put out there.
Right, exactly. And so we need pharmaceutical help to make the immune system work better. I'm not going to say whether I agree or disagree with that, but what I am going to say is the immune system's not confused, it's not weak, it's not stupid, it knows what it's doing, but like any other system, it has to be nutritionally supported because our body, all aspects of it, the efficiency with which it operates is determined by the quality of the nutrition we put into it, because the nutrients we derive from nutrition are used to increase and maintain the functionality of our tissue and organ systems. If our nutrition is bad, then if you want to take the immune system as a standout example, it's not going to work well. But in terms of how effective it truly is, we have faced so many things in our human history that could have wiped us out as a species, but has not. And the bottom line is it's not because we've collected a plethora of chemical injections that have saved us from all these things. It's because the immune system is efficiently and beautifully designed to keep us alive and keep us healthy. If we just keep our immune systems in good functioning order, they'll serve their purpose very well. And while we will get sick, we'll get better. I'm not saying there's things that we can't get sick from and that the immune system can't handle and we don't recover from. We do know that happens, and we do know that the medical system is there for us in dire cases of emergency where we actually need that.
It does have its benefits, right?
Of course it does. Of course it does. But if you keep your if you keep your immune system healthy and functioning through good nutrition, you can bypass a lot of those little emergencies that require Western medical intervention, for lack of a better term.
Right. So you're saying that if you're a junk food junkie, you better change,
Yes.
especially if you're concerned in this environment with exposure to viruses and bacteria and fungus and everything else on this planet that's trying to kill us. I've often thought, the Earth in many ways doesn't want us here, but I think the reality of it is it does. It just wants us to treat it well.
That's an excellent observation. Let me draw an illustration here about how diet can affect the immune system. When do little kids usually first get sick during the year? It's when they go back to school, but generally it's after Halloween. And parents always think, they were exposed to cold.
It's cold time of the year, right?
Yeah, that's not why. What happens is they go out and they get a bunch of candy and they eat all this sugar, sucrose. And what's interesting is sucrose molecules can bind to the receptor sites on cells that vitamin C should be binding to. And vitamin C is vital in immune function. Maybe we can talk about how a little bit later, but if you have all these vitamin C receptor sites on the cells plugged up with sucrose, you can't utilize vitamin C to help your immune system run well, and so little kids get sick after they eat all that sugar. So you derive from that, maybe I should cut down on my sugar because it can impede immune function. Yes, exactly. That's an example of how junk food, the sugar part of it, can affect our immune system function. Alcohol can do the same thing in a different context. So a lot of sugar, a lot of alcohol, you're going to have poor immune function.
And what do you call junk food, Ted? What really classifies as junk food? Go ahead.
I had a friend give me a really good illustration one time. He said, "Oh, I quit eating junk food." I said, "Yeah, everybody says that. What does that mean to you?" And he says, "Well, let me put it this way. If it didn't have fins, feathers, or fur, or grow out of the ground, I don't eat it." I said, "Well, arguably a Twinkie came out of the ground at one point. You know, it was wheat waving in a field in Iowa at one time." I said, "Wouldn't that qualify as something that grew out of the ground?" He said, "No. I mean, you have to look at it and be able to tell it came out of the ground." And you know, a Twinkie has a half-life that's similar to plutonium, so it's been altered in such a way that it's not any good for you anymore, regardless of the fact that it was once made from wheat.
I've heard people have put Twinkies into time capsules, so I guess we'll see just how long they last and how good they taste, 500 years from now.
Yeah, the bottom line is you should know what you're eating and where it came from. If it's in a cellophane, cardboard, or plastic wrap package and there's a bunch of multisyllabic words you can't pronounce in the ingredient list, then you probably shouldn't be eating it. When you buy broccoli in a grocery store and you look at the ingredient list, guess what it says? Broccoli! Okay, you buy some saltine crackers or some Captain Crunch and you read the ingredient list, it looks like polymers they might use to paint your car with.
But wait a minute, Ted. all these cereals, they put vitamins in there. If you read the box, they got a list of vitamins. What's the deal with that?
Well, that's a really loaded question. There's two types of vitamins. There's vitamins that are synthetically produced. In other words, you take the vitamin molecules out of some substrate you might not consider food. And then there's vitamins that are food-based.
What's wrong with the synthetic ones?
Well, let me paraphrase what doctors in the 50s used to say, because that's when synthetic vitamins first came on the market. And those doctors, MDs in fact, intelligently said, "Hey, you don't need to take vitamins, they're in your food." And that was a valid statement in the 1950s. Now, because of the way we raise our crops and the way we process our food, a lot of that vitamin content is destroyed in the processing, which is why those foods need to be fortified with vitamins, because the processing of them destroyed the vitamin content. So if you're going to try and save money, the types of vitamins you put in those foods are going to be made the cheapest, most efficient way possible. Your body looks at that and says, "Hey, this is not the vitamin C I would find in an orange or in some red peppers or in some asparagus. This is different. I'll see what I can do with it, but it's not what I had in mind when I was looking for vitamin C."
So, sounds like you're saying that those added synthetic vitamins, and they don't say synthetic, so people assume they're good, really aren't doing anything for you.
Well, they can help, but not as much. And by synthetic, we don't mean they're made out of plastic. That's not the point. It's that they were synthesized or extracted in a laboratory from some substrate that you might not consider edible. In other words, you wouldn't have it for dinner. For instance, most of your B vitamins are synthesized from derivatives of coal tar. That's a very well-kept secret. I'm sure you wouldn't have any coal tar for dinner. So while the vitamin B molecule exists in that substrate, that's, again, not exactly what your body's looking for. It's looking for vitamin B that comes from things like liver, which surprisingly no one eats anymore. Wheat germ, a lot of people can't eat that because they're afraid of wheat and gluten and that type of thing. So we've become so sensitized to healthy foods that actually contain good natural vitamins that we're not eating them much anymore, because our organ systems, particularly our digestive system, has been so compromised by years of putting junk food into it, it's not really that good at metabolizing good natural food anymore. So it can be a difficult transition for some people to make.
Well, it sounds to me like you could call the synthetic vitamins junk vitamins then?
I would.
Along with the junk food?
I would.
Okay, so when I go to the store and I walk into a pharmacy or some other store that carries supplements, those are the good ones, right?
Well, if I really wanted to get good vitamins, I would purchase them from a clinician, because clinicians carry what are called doctor's lines. Doctor's lines of vitamins, or clinician lines of vitamins, have to adhere to much higher standards of potency and purity than over-the-counter stuff does.
Source is a big thing too, right?
Source is everything. So when,
like you mentioned, the tar.
Yeah, when I hear a company say, we use whole food vitamins, my question is, does that mean your vitamins are derived from food? And their answer is, well, yes, of course. That's what whole food vitamins are. My question then is, Great. Where's your farm where you grow the organic vegetables that you derive the vitamins from? Then there's a long pause. And then there's a subject change.
Well, it always comes down to the money, doesn't it, Ted?
It does.
I mean, all this was created, when you think about it, that there was a time when people were eating food off the farm, and the doctors were saying, the medical doctors were saying, get your nutrition from your food. Someone went, I think we could create the substances that are in food from something else, or from that food too, but we can do it in a cheap way, and we can specifically take that supplement or that vitamin and synthesize it in the lab and make it a whole lot cheaper. Then we can convince the public that they should be taking it this way, and that this is just as good as doing it the other way, and we'll get rich. And basically that's what's happened. And we're trying to get people educated so that they understand that, not that they can't trust anybody, but they need to be, I don't know, we've never been buddies with Russia, but I really like their version of trust but verify. And we need to do that. People need to verify what they're being told, I don't care who they go to. I've got stories of incidents that I won't share today, but maybe later, of those same instances where I got a first opinion, a second opinion, and a third opinion. I'm sure you have too. But back to immunity. What can I do, Ted? I say I'm the guy listening right now, or the woman listening, and I'm confused. I know that I can recognize, because I've been living on junk food for my entire life. I eat out of a box and a can all the time, and I have, probably if I'm older, I have health problems, and my immune system isn't very good. And I was the first one to run out and get the shot, because I was concerned and worried, because I was made to be concerned and worried. What do I do? What should I do, Ted? What do I do?
A couple of simple steps. Number one is stay out of the periphery of the grocery stores. Or I should say, no, stay on the periphery of the grocery stores, stay out of the middle. Okay?
Periphery
is meat, dairy, produce. And the middle is boxed synthetic garbage. Stay away from that. Buy your food from the produce section. Get nice lean meats, free-range organic stuff if you can find it. I know it costs more, but it's definitely worth that. So getting back to immune function, when you supply the immune system with the nutrients it needs to maintain its functionality, it works better. What things specifically help the immune system work better? Well, we can talk about 2 or 3 different things that will really improve its functionality.
Can I say something there,
Sure.
Rick? Okay, let's say I'm not junk food junkie, and I want to change, and I don't know what to do. Somebody like you could help somebody like them, right?
Sure.
So getting a coach, finding a nutritional coach or a nutritionist, or a healthcare professional that deals in nutrition would be a good step. But let's say, I'm not sure I got the motivation to go do that yet, Ted. What can I stop doing? Give me some things I can stop doing and maybe start doing just on a simple level.
Sure. On a very simple level, if the hypothetical person we're talking about likes to enjoy alcohol, cut that down a little bit, particularly hard alcohols. Beer and wine, you have a little bit more leeway there, but hard alcohol really affects the bacteria in the intestinal system, and the bacteria in the intestinal system have everything to do with metabolizing the nutrients you eat and putting them in a form the body can actually use. So the more alcohol you drink, the more you impede that process, and it also prevents you from absorbing vitamin B, which is also necessary for a lot of different immune functions. So first on the list would be reduce alcohol consumption. Second on the list would be reduce sugar consumption. Third thing on the list would be start to make a transition from eating processed packaged foods to, like my old buddy said, stuff that had fins, feathers, or fur, or grew out of the earth. And that's a very simple concept that everybody can grasp. You don't need to be a clinical nutritionist to understand that concept. We are live biological systems. We are meant to eat live biological foods. And since we're not running down antelope and ripping their livers out and eating them like a lion, that live food for humans is stuff that grew out of the earth. You don't want to boil the life out of it. You don't want to eat it out of a can that's been sitting in a saline solution for 6 months on the shelf. You want to eat something that was harvested from a farm and is over in the produce section. That, for human beings, is what live food is. It's still enzymatically active. It hasn't been cooked and killed and destroyed. It's still very good for you in its raw state. So the more vegetable and fruit matter you can eat that's been unaltered and was recently harvested, the healthier you're going to be, the better your immune system function is going to be. If you are a meat eater, try and let chicken or fowl and fish dominate your meat consumption. But if you like red meat from time to time, get good organic sources, because sources that are not organic have hormone, pesticide, and herbicide residues in them, and that's going to compromise your immune system function as well. So you want to eat as naturally as you can. That's the easiest way to put it.
Can we trust these claims of free range and all these things that they do? Do we need to be careful there too? Sometimes we told things on the nutrition from those trying to save us that sometimes they're deceptive too?
Yeah. If you watch the series Seaspiracy, you'll learn all about the fallacy of dolphin-safe tuna, which is very tragic. But in terms of organically grown food and organically raised animals, that's generally valid. You just have to understand that it costs more money to do things that way, and the demand is very high because the supply is very low. So
more and more people are moving that direction, right?
Right. So, the economic system being what it is, when something becomes popular, the price goes up. It's the old supply and demand, but it's worth paying that price.
I don't know if we should share this podcast now. because I want to be able to go to the store and get all the stuff I want that's good stuff. If we tell everybody about it, there'll be even less out there to get. We might not have enough.
Well, there'll be enough.
There'll be enough. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that before I ask another question?
Yeah, good supplements to take. Vitamin C, because vitamin C is very important for immune system function. And believe it or not, calcium. Now, we're not talking about calcium phosphate, which is the kind in your bones. We're talking about calcium that is used by the immune system.
Well, calcium's a big deal too, because a lot of people think they go buy the over-the-counter calcium. Name some bad calciums or calciums your body doesn't really utilize, and which ones actually help you.
When someone picks up a calcium supplement, turn it over and look at the source on the ingredient list. And very typically it will say calcium carbonate. Okay, calcium carbonate is limestone, it's chalk, it's ground up powdered oyster shell. And that is very, very hard.
I like oysters though, Ted.
Well, but you don't like the shells.
No, I don't.
We're not meant to...
And your body doesn't break that down.
No, your body has a very difficult time breaking that down, and it has a very difficult time transporting it from the bloodstream into the tissues where it's really used. And very often that type of calcium, when you've heard MDs talk about, well, you got to limit your calcium intake so to give you kidney stones. The problem is when you eat insoluble, undigestible calcium made from calcium carbonate, it stays in the bloodstream. As the blood runs through the kidneys, it leaves calcium deposits in the kidneys, and then you get kidney stones. The problem is that calcium's not being metabolized or absorbed by the body, and so you have calcium residue in places it shouldn't be, and that can be one cause of kidney stones. So you want to make sure the calcium you get is a form that the body can use. So calcium citrate, calcium lactate, which is very hard to find. You generally have to get calcium lactate from doctors.
Well, okay.
Or I should say from chiropractors.
So the sources
very important.
Is very important. So can I go into the grocery store and buy calcium lactate?
Nope. They don't know what it is.
What about calcium citrate?
Yeah, you can find calcium citrate, but again, you have to read your labels. You need nutrients in a form your body can use, and many of the forms that are on the counter have very low usability.
Well, they're cheap, right? It all goes back to the money.
Yes, exactly.
It's a way, sounds like calcium. What about milk? Calcium for milk. I drink a lot of milk, Ted.
Well,
what do I need to take anything else for?
Think about it this way, okay? Calcium is a mineral in the ground. The reason milk has calcium is because cows used to eat grass. Okay? Yeah. The grass had calcium in it because it grew out of the ground. The cows ate the grass, therefore their milk had calcium. Now cows are fed pelletized synthetic garbage with no calcium in it, and they're not eating grass. So now milk is calcium fortified, which means calcium is put into the milk after the fact. What kind of calcium do they put in? Calcium carbonate, the worthless kind. So unless you're drinking, if you're drinking raw milk from organic cows that are grass-fed, yes, it's fantastic. And people that are lactose intolerant can actually drink raw milk because raw milk has the acidophilus bacteria in it that actually digests the lactose so it doesn't bother you. However, the FDA will make you believe that if you drink raw milk, you'll end up with botulism and die. Let's not go there.
We're all happy with the FDA. They're one of the greatest government agencies on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, and I hope you all know I'm joking. But they do serve the purpose, and it's not all bad. So we're not here to just talk down everything that the government does, but we want you to understand that they do screw up a lot of things.
Well, they're not health experts, and that's
and we
the
all
problem.
do. You assume they are health experts, right? Yeah. You assume they do, that all the people working for them, all the ones making the decisions, are really the scientists and the people that really know what works and what doesn't.
Well, you've heard the phrase "follow the money." If you do that, you generally find what's wrong with something.
Right? Yeah, you can buy your way into anything these days, and in America too.
So besides vitamin C and calcium lactate, there are products that specific nutritional companies make that have a thymus gland material in them. And that's from a bovine source. But in mammals, if you use these glands from mammals, it works the same in a human body as it does from the animal body it came from. And the reason that's the case is because these glands absorb into themselves all the minerals, vitamins, and nutrients that are necessary for the functionality of that gland. Now, Chinese medicine is very familiar with this. So if you have a weak thymus, which would be shown by difficulty in getting over an illness within a 7-day period. In other words, you should start improving in 7 days because that's how long it takes the thymus to arrange an immune cell attack on a specific antigen or virus or bacteria. If you have this illness that goes beyond 7 days with absolutely no improvement, then you have some thymus issues. If you eat a supplement that has some thymus tissue in it, it's kind of like taking a multivitamin supplement specifically for your thymus. It helps it work better, and then your immune functionality improves because you're actually feeding the organ that has the responsibility of generating that immune response. And again, you can't generally find stuff like that over the shelf. You have to go to a good nutritional chiropractor or acupuncturist or naturopath and ask them what they have in their clinician's line that would help their thymus work better. And that's where you find stuff like that.
Well, and that brings to my mind an interesting point. A lot of people out there are vegans, vegetarians. They think that the human body is made for just eating stuff grown out of the ground. It's been my understanding and my education that says that humans, if you take the animals on the earth that are pure vegetarians and those that are carnivores that eat meat, that our digestive system is actually set up to accommodate both. And maybe you could briefly talk about that.
Sure.
Why is it okay for us to have both?
Well, let's separate ourselves for a moment from the ideological fervor that is associated with veganism or vegetarianism and the cruelty of mass animal production for human consumption, that type of thing. Let's move those off the table for a minute and just talk about how the human body works. Because the human body doesn't really care what your morals or ideologies are. It needs what it needs. Now, in light of that, when you look at our digestive system, it is just as you said. It's made to process proteins, whether they're animal or vegetable derived, and it's made to process vegetables or plant matter. If you're looking for an ideal percentage, that can actually vary from person to person because there is variability in what type of dominant macronutrients are going to work in that person's physiology. That's not to say we all don't need more vegetables. Generally, we do. If you look at the average American diet, the vegetables that are eaten are woefully inadequate in terms of their mass and volume, and on top of that, they're usually processed and canned, which makes them very close to worthless. So
get it raw.
Yeah.
If you can, get it
raw.
raw.
I mean, no one's going to eat raw asparagus and broccoli, but
some vegetables are good, but better if they are cooked, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting is the fiber, the insoluble fiber that's in vegetables and fruits and in their skins. When we eat that, the bacteria in our gut use that to keep themselves healthy and happy. And it's actually the bacteria in our gut that determine how well we metabolize the nutrients that we eat. So if you eat a lot of meat, you're going to have species of bacteria in your gut that cause a lot of inflammation, that can impede immune system function, et cetera, et cetera. So regardless of what your ideology is, I would say, vegetables should probably compose 65 to 80% of the diet in an ideal state. And if you're a protein person, some lean proteins. I have tried being vegetarian. I really liked it. It suited me well. I just like meat once in a while.
Well, and there's nutrients in the meat that you don't get out of the vegetables, right? Some of the things, sometimes a pure vegan can come up with nutritional issues.
Yes, you have to be pretty smart to be a vegan. You have to understand what type of proteins the vegetables contain and how to combine them so that you can mimic what you would get in animal-based proteins. It's absolutely possible. You just have to know what you're doing. A vegan who goes and gorges on a bunch of let's go back to Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch, because it's a breakfast cereal made from grains.
Yeah, they can still call themselves a vegan, right, and eat Captain Crunch.
Exactly. As long as it's not made from animals, you can be a vegan. Now, that's not the intelligent way to go about it. The intelligent way to go about it is to understand the protein ratios of these various vegetables and find things that don't irritate your digestive system, and at the same time provide the protein matrix you need and eat that. But I would say, if you stick with a diet that's, as I said, 70 to 85% fruits and vegetables, grains, and then the rest lean proteins, you're going to do pretty good.
Gotcha. So is that what you follow, Ted? You try to do that?
For the most part, I have periods of time.
It's not always easy, is it?
No, it isn't. I have periods of time where I try to clean out, and I will go vegetarian for a month or two, and then slowly creep the meat back in and try and eat less of it than I did before. But I grew up as a weightlifter and a bodybuilder, and I have that old fixation on the protein mentality. I've got to have 1 gram of protein for every pound of muscle in my body. So if you're eating that way, you're setting yourself up from problems later, which even the illustrious Arnold Schwarzenegger has admitted in Game Changers. So it's good to eat more plant matter in our diet. We all need it. We're going to benefit from it, and it will make our immune systems function better as well.
You mentioned the microbes being affected by eating a lot of meat and a few vegetables. Those microbes are very important in your immune system, right?
Absolutely. A lot of our immune system operates from our gut. In other words, we have this thing called GALT in our guts, G-A-L-T. That's an acronym for gut-associated lymphoid system. So to translate that into language everyone can understand, a lot of that lymph system, which we talked about at the outset, which is necessary to get rid of waste products and dead cells and infected cells and that type of thing, it's located within the walls of the intestinal system. And the health of that system is dictated, again, by what we eat and how we feed the bacteria that maintain the health of the gut wall and our ability to metabolize nutrients. So, yeah, that's really important.
Just made me think of a question when we were talking about the calcium that I don't think we got into. Is what are the sources of calcium lactate? If it's the best, where does it come from?
Where it actually comes from is spring water. And believe it or not, the best source of calcium lactate in spring water is a bottled water that no one drinks anymore because they don't like the minerally taste, and that's Evian.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's also in eggshells. It's in different things. Like if you wanted to make a quick natural brew to take when you feel yourself coming down with something, you can cut up a couple orange peels and some eggshells and boil it in water, let the water cool and drink it, and you actually have usable calcium citrate.
Huh.
So there's lots of natural things you can do to make yourself healthier, but calcium is necessary. We talked about immune cells that are located all over your body, and they have to get from point A, wherever they are, to the site of an infection. And these are mobile immune cells. They're called phagocytes and macrophages, and these are guys like the little Pac-Man from the 70s that walk around and gobble up stuff that's not you and that's harmful. And the way that they transport themselves from one point to another point in the body is they follow what's called an ionized calcium trail. In other words, that's calcium that's been given an electrical charge so it can move in and out of cell membranes. I know I'm getting a little biochemical here, but calcium's absolutely necessary for those mobile immune cells to get to the site of an infection and address it and dispose of it. So if we're low in usable forms of calcium, our immune system's not going to function as well because it's kind of like taking a tank to the battle lines, but some clown took the treads off, so the wheels are just spinning in the mud and the tank's not going anywhere. You have to have that calcium in the tissues in order for those mobile immune cells to transport from point A to point B. That process for your nutrition nerds out there is called chemotaxis. So without enough calcium, our immune system is not going to function well. So that goes back to getting a good usable form of calcium, like calcium lactate. And again, that's something you typically have to get from well-informed chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopaths, that type of thing.
I would assume then that your body does use some of the calcium, is able to assimilate some of the calcium from calcium carbonate and other sources. Otherwise, our system, we'd probably collapse into a lumpy mess on the ground because all of our bones would just come apart. Or do we tend to scavenge our own bone in times of need and under a significant immune response?
That's a really interesting question. When you get a fever, what your body is doing is it's raising the internal temperature, and that assists the body in leaching calcium from the bone tissue, and then that calcium is used to help those immune cells get to the point of an infection. That's why when you get sick, you get a fever. So what you really don't want to do is take some over-the-counter medication that's meant to reduce your fever, because then you impede the body utilizing calcium to fight that infection. It's very interesting, when we have clinicians who have patients that are mothers that come in and they say, my baby's teething and he has a fever. What can I give him to get the fever down? If you give that baby a form of powdered calcium lactate mixed in water and put it in their bottle and they drink it, their fever drops immediately, because you've just made a usable source of calcium available to that baby's physiology. And it has.
So it's not drawing it out of the bone and creating the fever.
Right.
It's taking it from what they took in, stopping the other process that was causing the fever,
Right.
and supplementing the body with what it needs to fight the infection.
Right. You don't want to steal calcium from your bones to make your teeth as a baby. you want to get the calcium from the mother's milk, ideally. And if the mother can't breastfeed for one reason or another, then you kind of have to supplement that into the baby's diet, which is completely possible by mixing, say, a powdered form of calcium lactate with the formula. In fact, that would improve its bioavailability quite a bit and be good for the baby too.
Yeah, I keep waiting for someone to start marketing mother's milk, and maybe someone's already out there doing it. I don't know, but I think they'd have a hard time finding a source that wanted to sell what they have. Anyway.
Well, it always leads to the question, how did you get it? So that can be an uncomfortable conversation.
So briefly, here as we kind of come to the end of this, though we could talk for hours and hours on this, obviously.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
And I find it fascinating.
For us, anyway.
Yeah, and we hope we haven't bored people or gone above people's heads with terms used. I know Ted is. I'm a nutritionist, but Ted is an expert. I call myself a professional. He's an expert professional, and he knows the details. Just briefly, we talked about how nutrition affects the immune system, and I just wanted to say too, microbiology was one of my favorite classes, and I remember my teacher at one time saying that if I stuck 100 people in one room and brought in the most virulent virus on the planet into that room, at least one person would survive. And so can we say it's because that person's immune system was running at an optimum level and it was able to take out whatever it was exposed to?
That's exactly why. Well, this is a statement that's going to be hard to believe, but I have not been sick with a standard upper respiratory illness like a cold or the flu in the last 15 years or so. I did have one exception to that. I caught a flu I'd never caught before in July of all months of year before last, and it beat me up pretty good. But what's really interesting, if I could just say this real quick, is when our body marshals the defenses to fight a particular pathogen, there's a kind of a cousin to what are called T cells, and these cousins of the T cells, or varieties of T cells, are called memory cells, and it's their job to do two things: store the memory on a cellular level of what that pathogen was and what its protein sequencing was. In other words, its protein identity and all these other things. And then it also keeps a memory of the various different combinations of immune cells that were used to fight that battle and kill that pathogen. So your body retains the memory of all the things you've caught before, so that when you encounter them again, it's like pulling a file card out of a recipe box and going, oh, this is how you make lasagna. Oh, this is how you get rid of H1N3. And that's a flu variation. And so your body knows how to fight it off immediately because you've had it before, and you don't even know you've caught it again because your body neutralizes it literally in a matter of minutes. So long story short, I caught a form of flu I was never exposed to before, so my body had to come up with a game plan to fight it. While it does that, you're sick. And that's how it works.
Yeah.
Once the body formulates that game plan and neutralizes that particular flu virus, you don't catch it again, contrary to what you're hearing out there, because that's the way the immune system works. That's the way it's always worked. That's why people that catch something don't have the same thing over and over and over again. That's why when our little kids go to school, they come back sick for the first 5 or 6 years of their life because they're encountering pathogens that they don't have any defenses for because they've never met them before. They've never had them before. They've never been exposed to them before. So as their immune system gains experience, and those memory cells are packed with all the information they learned from getting sick with things they weren't exposed to before, they get sick less and less and less, and by the time they're in high school, they're rarely sick, unless they still celebrate Halloween and go out and eat candy every October.
Yes.
And drink a lot.
And these, the bacteria, the viruses, they're in our environment everywhere.
Absolutely.
We're constantly exposed to them. But we don't immediately have a reaction to all of them because our body has the natural ability to fight these things off without an extreme response to it.
Right.
And it's only the extreme response that takes place when it's typically something new it's been affected by.
Yeah, so
or your system's not running very well, right?
Right, or it's flatlined. That's why when we visit tropical countries, for instance, we go to Mexico, or we go to South America, or we go to different parts of Asia, and we eat the food and drink the water, we're exposed to bacterial pathogens that we don't encounter here in the United States. So your body says, wow, I haven't seen this before. You're going to be on the pot and thrown up in a bucket for a while until we figure out how to deal with this. Montezuma's revenge, we've heard it called. So that's why that happens when you go to other countries. It's not necessarily that they're unsanitary or the food's poorly processed. It's just that you're encountering things you didn't encounter here in the United States, and your body has to learn how to deal with it.
Well, Ted, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
For coming on the show. I would like to have you back again. We'll cover other topics in the future. And did you have any last words?
Yeah, remember that whole food designation. Stick to that. If it didn't have fins, feathers, fur, or grow out of the earth, don't eat it. And if you just follow that simple rule, it solves so many different problems on so many different levels.
Can you tell me, and I don't mind giving plugs to companies, I want people to be aware, can you give me some good companies out there that are producing the kind of supplements that you think are actually healthy and good for us?
Sure. I've been in clinical nutrition, like I say, for almost 30 years now, and the company that I keep gravitating to over and over again is Standard Process. And the reason I like Standard Process is because, remember, I said earlier, when the company says they make products out of whole food, I ask, where's your farm? Standard Process actually has a farm.
Well, and we should say you do work with Standard Process, right? Or work for them?
Yep.
So I don't want anybody to come back in the future and say, oh, he said all that because he's associated with them. But there's a reason you're associated with them, right?
Right. I could work for whoever I want, and I have worked for other doctor line nutritional companies. And the reason I stuck with Standard Process is because when I went and toured the facility and saw what they have there, they took me out to a farm. And there were tractors pulling beets out of the ground. They said, well, these beets are what we make our liver product beta food out of. And then we followed the truck to the processing site, and everything was processed in very natural ways. No heat or solvents are used to extract any of the actives from the vegetables. They are either juiced, and then the juice is spun-dried in a vacuum and compressed into tablets, or the pulp is concentrated until you have the desired potency of the target nutrient or vitamin, and then it goes into the bottle and out to the doctors who purchase it. And what's interesting is another company I worked for that I will not name, that's very popular and international in nature, I went to their production facility, and it was a warehouse with row after row of blue 55-gallon drums filled of white crystalline powder. It all looked the same. And so as I went to the tour guide, I said, well, what's this? She said, oh, that's vitamin B. Really? What's this over here? That's vitamin C. Well, they look the same. Well, yeah, that's how vitamins look before you put them in tablets. I said, really? Then I go to Standard Process, a decade later, and I see them pulling vegetables out of the ground, and I, asked the dumb question, is this really what you make your products out of? They said, yes, come to our production facility. And then I literally saw those products being pressed and juiced and turned into enzymatically alive substances in the forms of their capsules and tablets that they shipped out to their doctors within literally a couple days out of being pulled out of the ground. I thought, okay, this is real nutrition. This is like the 50s doctor going, you should get your nutrition from your food. Well, it is from food, but most of our food is so hammered and ruined because of the way it's processed. If you're going to take food-based supplements, you should take food-based supplements that come from a protected organic farm that's never been exposed to herbicides, pesticides, et cetera, and that's what that company is, which is why they occupy the number one spot in my mind as the most effective supplements to use, because they are alive, they're biologically active, and like my old buddy said, they're made out of things that had fins, feathers, or fur, or grew out of the earth.
Very good. Also, on our website, oceanbaynaturals.com, you'll be able to find links there to places like Standard Process. I do want to mention, though, as a chiropractic doctor and nutritionist, I don't really recommend for people. A lot of people out there just go, they'll read an article and they'll go, oh, okay, yeah, I need some vitamin C, or I need some calcium, or I need some other vitamin. It looks like I'm missing this because this article said I might have these symptoms. And so they randomly go to the store and they grab something off the shelf, or they read another article that recommends this guy or that guy, and they just go do it. And they most of the time, they don't find it really helps them all that much. And so the reality that I've learned over the years is you need to be educated. You need to go to someone who can help you figure out really what you need. And you need to go to someone who knows what they're doing. And so interview people. Find yourself a nutritionist. Find yourself someone who you trust and believe that they know what they're talking about. Standard Process is a great one. I'm sure there's other companies out there following a similar plan, but not many of them. They don't follow the same formula because, again, it goes back to the money. And so consider that when you read articles and learn information. We're giving you this information. We have sponsors, of course, but we're giving this information because we want the public to be educated. We want you to improve your lives and find some health and wellness and happiness in this life. And we're not about just making $1. So consider that when you hear the information, how you trust it, look what their intent is in giving that knowledge.
Yeah, if I can make one final
Absolutely.
Comment about whole foods and whole food supplements. You brought out a really valid point, because people read various different magazines and trade journals and those types of things, and they may determine through their own research that they're lacking a particular nutrient. But let's again briefly revisit real quick how the body metabolizes nutrients. There's no such thing as a ascorbic acid tree or a thiamine tree or a melatonin tree. Okay, you don't have single nutrients occurring in food substrates with nothing else in them. Food substrates and the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that they have in them are all interconnected with a matrix of cofactors and synergists. And it's those trace elements, those cofactors and synergists, that actually make those nutrients bioactive in human physiology. So when you take something out of that matrix and isolate it and give it to someone, the body often says, okay, here's ascorbic acid, but that's not completely vitamin C. It's just the antioxidant coating on the outside of the vitamin C matrix. I need the flavones, the isoflavones, the bioflavonoids. They're all missing. So in order to make this ascorbic acid complete, I'm going to pull those synergists and cofactors out of the tissues. So taking straight ascorbic acid can actually create vitamin C deficiency syndromes farther on down the road, because you're not getting the whole matrix that actually is vitamin C. So that's why it's better if it comes from food, because then all those synergists and cofactors are already present. They haven't been removed, and that's what makes it easier for your body to use those vitamins and nutrients.
So you want to find supplements that have basically been grown from vegetables, fruits, and dried. They're dehydrated essentially, and of course through research they know which ones have which nutrients in it, and that's what you find written on the bottle. But it's the combination of everything together, and that's what your body utilizes the most. It's as close as you can get is going and eating some cauliflower or broccoli or asparagus, whatever. You're getting into the supplement because you're too lazy to fix it yourself, probably. And
Or you
so,
don't like the way it tastes.
or that. And I have to say, for me and the way I grew up and the way I was exposed to crappy food most of my life, I tend to be more of a supplement taker. I don't really care for the taste of certain vegetables. And my wife, Dr. Ingrid, is the opposite. She will gobble down vegetables all day long. And so I take a lot of guff at the dinner table. But I take the supplements, and they work for me. And so there you go.
There's always choices.
Always choices. So make sure you make the right one. Be educated and get information from someone who knows. We've had Ted Hahn on the show, and he's been a wonderful guest. We hope he'll come back.
Would love to. Thank you for the honor and the privilege of being here. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, that was a great interview, Dr. Kell.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah,
Had a
I
good
enjoyed
time.
listening to it. I had some aha moments during it, like when he talked about T cells come from the thymus, B cells come from the bone marrow. I had no idea. Like, I've heard T cell, B cell, but he actually told me where they're coming from. And it's funny, I thought about this thing, like I hit my leg one time right on the bone, and it had an inflammation right away. It hurt, it was painful. And every now and then I get this tender spot in my leg, and I swear it's got to be like I don't know if the bone marrow comes from that spot, if it's like, I don't know, but I feel like when I'm sick or something, like I'll feel that spot. And maybe
Yes, areas of
being
your body
affected.
that have been injured do retain some dysfunction. It's like a scar, the scar on your skin. It never goes away. All kinds of cosmetics or skincare products that claim they can reduce scars, and I suppose maybe some do have some effect, but
Yeah.
it's not going to make it disappear completely. So. Yeah, that's what's happening in there. You've had an injury, it's been repaired, but it's never like it originally was. So
Yeah.
it's more sensitive. Nerve, you have more, you actually grow more nerve fibers in an area after injury.
Oh.
It's
That's
almost
maybe why
like
I
the
feel
body
it
saying,
more.
you know what, I've already beat this thing up once, I don't need to do it again. So if it makes it more sensitive, you're less likely to
Yeah.
hit it again.
Another thing that I thought of when I listened to it was, like, I tend to, in my head, justify eating really healthy and then, hey, I can eat some junk food too. But he's saying, like, that adds to immune system problems, the chemicals in the food, processed foods and stuff like that. So it made me rethink what I'm doing in my life. Like, oh, okay, maybe I should not be doing that, eating certain foods.
Why do you do it, Nikki?
Or if you're, like, when I'm sick, I do clean up. I do it because probably emotionally I feel like I want to feel good, honestly.
Oh, you mean eating
The junk food.
the junk food?
Yeah.
Because you have a sense of feeling a little better afterwards, right?
do,
At
yeah.
first.
My
then,
mood.
But then does guilt follow up later?
Not really.
Not anymore.
I just like it. I wish it did.
Well,
Maybe that would
okay,
help.
Okay.
When I used to overdo it and do too much, and then I would
Yeah.
put on weight, I would have those feelings.
Well, you
but
think
I don't
about most people
anymore.
who are on a diet, they tend to, if they break the diet,
Yeah.
they tend to feel guilty, and in fact, they tend to quit the diet at that point. And
I used to be one of those people.
And that's we're going to talk about that in the future too, about what that's all about and what causes people to do that, why that's so bad, and etc.
Yeah. I liked how he talked about the grocery shopping, because I'm the one who does the grocery shopping in my house. And
Yeah.
I do. I hit the meat, I hit the veggies, I hit, the dairy, that sort of stuff. And then I kind of like go through and see like the candy aisle and
Work
the
your way-
chips
you work
and
your
the
way into the middle.
crackers. Yeah,
There
I
you
do. I go there, but as long as it's not as much as the main foods, I feel like I'm balanced, and
Well, you
I
know
don't know,
what?
there's like a balance I'm
I
looking
find
for.
What's the psychology behind that?
yeah.
It's interesting because I used to own a health food store, and so you put the stuff that's most desirable in the middle, so that they got to go buy everything else, because you want them to see everything, and the more people see, it's like in advertising, the more you put something out in front of somebody, the more times they see it, the more likely they're going to buy it.
True.
And so, so for those that are unaware, it's one of the reasons they throw it at you over and over and over again. Why Coca-Cola, even though it's top soda sales company in the country or the world, they keep putting their pictures and their name out there. So why did I bring that up?
Another thing that I really liked that he was talking about, speaking of the interview, was when he mentioned, like, people will go online and they'll look up, oh, well, I have this symptom. What should I be taking? And then they'll like guess, like, oh, I'll try this supplement. I've been that person so many times.
Yes, we want to say one thing that Ted didn't talk about when it comes to supplementation. He did say go see your chiropractic doctor, acupuncturist, or naturopath, or nutritionist. If you want to change your diet, you want to help, improve what you're eating. And, the reason he said that is because people read stuff online all the time. They read about a given issue and they go, I have that. Mm-hmm. And then in the article it says, oh, take vitamin C for that. And so, or take, some B vitamins for that, or take some minerals for that. And so they go, oh, okay, well, I think I have that symptom. And they go to the store and they look at the vitamins and supplements and they go, okay. And they buy one. And then they go start taking it. And, typically they don't notice any difference. And the reason being is because just like you would go to the medical doctor and get diagnosed with a problem, and he would prescribe you a medication to help cover up the symptoms of that problem, we as natural healthcare professionals do the same thing. You come to me, I do an exam, and I examine you physically, nutritionally, and emotionally with different tests to see where your problem is actually originating from. And from there, I may prescribe to you a nutritional program and give you specific supplements for your specific issue. It's rather than just throwing stuff at it because you read about it in an article. You may have many symptoms. We're trained to learn to diagnose those symptoms and to help it in the way that it can be helped naturally, where, as you might find with a medical doctor, he's more trained to prescribe to a medication that will help either cover up those symptoms or in some cases solve your problem as well, or move you on to cut it out and do surgery.
But what I love about what you guys do here is you actually muscle test. So exactly at this moment in time what your body needs versus like even when I've seen a naturopath or an integrative medicine doctor, they're still guessing at what I'm doing. Well,
that's why they call it a practice, and we're no different than the medical doctors in that way. You provide us with the results of several different tests. You mentioned muscle testing. Muscle testing, a lot of people don't even know what that is, but you expose someone to something and you test the strength of their muscles in its presence and without its presence, and obviously you can often feel there's a difference. Muscle goes weak or it gets stronger. That we don't rely 100% on that at all. That is one of the tools in our bag that we use as an evaluation. We do many other things from testing your pH to mineral tests in the office for deficiencies to we can even send out your feces for evaluation. Microbiome is on the rise there. Everybody's hearing about it. And that's about testing your feces to see what flora is in your intestinal tract, to see if you have a bunch of healthy or unhealthy bacteria living inside you. And then that information can help direct us at providing you with the proper nutrients to help you recover from that imbalance. And then you can do the test again after a few months and see the difference.
So some of the takeaways from your interview were, what can you stop doing now? You asked, what can our listeners stop doing now? He said, cut down on hard alcohols. I thought that was interesting. Like beer and wine was not as much, but hard alcohol.
The alcohol itself is the significant thing. So beer and wine are much lower in alcohol.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Reduce sugar, obviously. Eat whole foods. I mean, those are all things that everybody can do today.
Yeah, it's not that hard to make a change. The difficulty comes when basically we get used to a routine and we don't want to change that routine because it feels comfortable. And
Yeah.
creating a new routine is very difficult for many of us, especially to stay committed to that new routine. We fall into one, we gain food has a memory to us. And that's a big thing. It's not just the taste of the food. It's the memories tied to our subconscious when we were eating that food when something good happened. That's the emotional side of eating.
That's so true.
Yes.
I wanted to say because
Yeah.
lately I've been on this cinnamon sugar toast kick in the morning. This is probably bad, but my grandma Maggie used to make this so special for us.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, we use organic everything, but it's still, but I feel like connected to something bigger than myself.
That's
And I'm
right.
passing on a tradition. And like even tuna fish sandwiches with pickles and sour cream chips is like my grandma Maggie. I can't help it. I love it.
Every time you
It's
eat
like,
one.
it makes me feel so good.
Yes.
I feel like
Yes.
I am like honoring a legacy, and that's
Yes.
maybe not as healthy,
So-
but I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like an emotional charge from that food.
Now tie that to someone who grew up eating cans of Hormel chili and not putting down Hormel chili, just saying may not be eating out of a can.
Right.
If all your food came out of a can, but it was a special time, and it is for some.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was after living by myself, I moved. Had no roommates anymore, and off working in my younger years, and the diet I had then was very simple because I'd work and can't remember what else I would do besides work, but I would make Hormel chili burritos. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
And that brings back a memory, because it was easy. I could heat the chili up. In fact, I can't remember if that may have been before microwaves. Heat the chili up on the stove, and tells you how old I am.
It's better though.
And rolling it into a flour tortilla. That was great.
Yeah.
So simple but not healthy.
Yeah.
And so we do what simple ties us back to memories. That's the reason people eat junk food. It's easy. And it can be tied to memories, chocolate cake.
Yeah.
What do we do? A birthday party.
Birthdays, it's a celebration.
You remember, that birthday was so cool. And it's tied back to cake. Oh, yeah. Oh, some cake.
It's one of my best memories as a child. Like this birthday cake my mom made as a 5-year-old. I think it was like a lion cake with like licorice whiskers and like.
So what does that make cake for you now? Something
happy.
good. Something a happy memory. It's not just the fact that it tastes good, because it doesn't.
Right.
Now you might eat it and go, "Oh, that's so sweet." That's what I do. But
it's hard to
it's
break.
A memory. It is.
It's hard to break
because it's an emotional feel good, not just a food feel good.
Right. It's a comfort.
Yep.
So we need to get back into like making the healthy food what our life is about, right? Like family gatherings with all this healthy stuff.
Yeah, the answer to that is make new memories while eating good things.
Yeah.
That's
or do the 80-20 rule, like you said, like 80% fill up with vegetables and a little bit of protein, and then, you have your little treat with everybody too.
Well, I can remember eating fruits and vegetables with my grandmother, because she was, you want to know what the sweetest thing she ever made me was?
What?
I love my grandmother. She taught me a lot.
Yeah.
But I didn't like to go spend long periods of time with her.
Oh, because she made you eat healthy.
Because I was a kid, and my parents, gave me whatever the heck I wanted to, or I cried about it, and then they gave it to me.
Oh, so how it worked. That explains a lot.
Yeah. At least this is what my mother tells me. I don't remember that. But anyway, my point of that was that I remember with her, she would make peanut butter balls with honey. So she would mix honey into a ball, and it was supposed to be a fun thing as a little kid, so she'd give me some, and it was like roll it into a ball, and then she'd take that tray and put it in the refrigerator. Can't remember if she mixed some other things into it too. She might have.
Probably.
But reality was, it wasn't that good.
I've done that kind of stuff to my kids too. I've made like the healthy brownies that are like black bean brownies, or, muffins with.
Yeah.
And they're not that bad.
No, Dr. Ingrid, she's actually created many natural recipes for cookies and cake and different things. So we're going to eventually have her talk about that and post those on the show too.
Yeah. I got to say, the best thing that I think, how they have the chicken soup for the soul books? when I make chicken and vegetable soup, which is like one of the healthiest meals, and I try to have it almost every day, it really does feel like it's like feeding my soul. I love it. It's so healthy, and I feel good eating it. And
Chicken soup.
yeah, and I puree it, which everybody thinks is disgusting, but it's like so good with just a little bit of crackers in there, and it's literally it's like onion and celery and carrots and cauliflower and a little bit of broccoli, and I throw like turmeric and ginger in there, and it is so good, and you feel so good when you eat healthy.
Yes.
It really does.
Yes. You remind me of my grandmother again, though, because chicken soup, she actually made her
So
own
good.
whole wheat noodles.
Oh yeah, my mom's made
She
her
would
own
make her
noodles
own
too.
whole
Yeah.
wheat noodles and take them, and we'd make them with
I
her.
don't even
and then
put
she'd
noodles
dry
in
'em.
it.
She'd put them on a hanger and dry them. What?
I don't even put noodles
Oh,
in
you
it.
don't put noodles in it?
I don't need noodles. You just add little crackers.
Well, yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
that's good.
chicken and vegetables. It's so healthy, and you feel so good.
Yes.
Yeah, but my kids, no, they're like, that's disgusting, Mom. It's
Well,
like vomit. That's what they say.
Whether it's my grandmother's
It's so
recipe
good,
for
though.
chicken noodle soup or Nikki's, we'll provide that for you later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's so easy, too. It's so easy. Yeah.
Sounds good, Nikki.
All right. I'll make it for you.
I look forward to it.
And you eat chicken soup when you get sick, too, so you know that there's something
That's
good
right.
there, right? Something in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well,
lots of good nutrients.
I enjoyed the interview.
Minerals.
You and Ted, thank you so much for having him on, and hopefully we can bring him back again sometime.
He said he'd like to come back, so we will do that.
Oh, great. Good deal. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening today. We hope you enjoyed the interview, and we are looking forward to speaking with you next week.
While we make every effort to broadcast correct information, we are still learning. We will double check all facts, but realize that medicine is a constantly changing science and art. One doctor may have a different way of doing things from another. We are simply presenting our views on how to live a healthy lifestyle that will be as evidence-based as possible. We welcome any comments, suggestions, or corrections of errors. We take no money from drug or device companies. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others, including but not limited to patients that you are treating. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Under no circumstances shall Dr. Kell Fullerton or any guests or any contributors to the podcast or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Dr. Kell Fullerton be responsible for damages arising from use of this podcast. This blog should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis of expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. Our website, blog, and podcasts are all HIPAA compliant. While you may give your email address to subscribe to the website posts or to post information on the website blog, we will never share your email address or contact information with any third parties without your explicit permission. The contents of Health Talk with Dr. Kell podcast and the show notes are all copyrighted. All blog posts, podcasts, and show notes that are distributed to the public for free can be redistributed via hard copy or electronic copy for free only if Health Talk with Dr. Kell is included as the acknowledged author within the actual media that is being redistributed. The Health Talk with Dr. Kell podcast is a production of the Orange Stack, with executive producers Dr. Kell Fullerton and Eric Hammond and host Nikki Sterling.